Happy New Year, guys. Not like Happy New Year. Not like to me every day is the same. And when people say, for New Year's I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna get in shape, and people might last up to a few months, some people a few days, maybe a month. You can't look at life that way, right? I just consider every day an opportunity to just build on of what the last day was, continually evolving. So today's video, very interesting topic, two interesting topics. And when you read the Bible, and let's say you've read the Bible for 5 to 10 years, there are certainly areas in the Bible that you read over and over and over, but as I'm trying to tell you to do, I say look at the meanings behind them, the hermeneutics. I understand it's not always that easy. You read the Bible, you just want to read the Bible, and I guess you could say maybe there's a little bit of laziness behind it, or maybe that's not the correct word, but that's kind of what it is. There's certain things that you come across. You could read the Bible 50 times and still not have looked at what that really meant behind it. And what I'm saying may or may not be right, but I'm going to give you my interpretation of it. Okay, so I wanted to know, I was reading Mark, and it said the swine, they were talking, how the demoniac, whether there was one or two, I'm not going to argue that. There was a man, he was a demoniac, he had a legion of demons in him, and you know what? Jesus had compassion even on the demon. And so think about that, right? Think of how much love Jesus Christ has. It's just hard to comprehend. Anyway, I wanted to know why. So remember, there's a legion, okay? So what's a legion? Now, that could be thousands. That could be 2, 3, or 4,000 or something like that. 2 to 3,000 anyways. Separate demons in one person. Why did those pigs drown themselves in the sea? In many places, and this is where I think people have this wrong, they say the water represents cleansing and all that. They don't want to go to water. The spirit wants to go to dry places to find a place, right? To find someone to inhabit. But I find, don't you think that's kind of strange that they went into the swine and then they drowned themselves in the sea? But those swine, it could have been it obviously was the swine. Yes, they can inhabit them, but the swine couldn't take it and they ran over the edge, right? The swine are still a living. They're the smartest animal, smartest over a dog. They're smarter than a dog. So they went to water, and what was it? Another passage, when people say water, they don't want to go to water. Well, I just read in Mark that it says, the man's son, he throws himself into the fire, and he tries to drown him in the water. Why would he try to drown himself in the water if the spirit was inside of him? I don't know. It's hard to discern. So I'm going to read you something that somebody wrote. As I was looking at this was very interesting. I'm going to read it to you. I think you'll like it. I'm not saying, this is someone's interpretation that I read late last night. And I got it from Reddit somewhere, and I don't know where that is now, but I copied it and I put it in my email. Pardon me a sec. And I'm going to give you another one after this too, another interesting thing. Is it true that spirits hate water because it represents cleansing? Maybe. Probably. But there's obviously something more to it because they're drowning themselves in water. So, I found this very interesting. This is just someone's opinion, okay? And so I'm going to read it. The following is my opinion. Jesus, being who he was, would want to secure these evil spirits he cast in a specific location, even though it would be temporary. These are people talking back and forth that are in the same spot as me, who wanted to know after so many years, what was this about? So this is what this guy came up with. He would want to unleash, so remember, it's a legion of demons. There's a lot of them. He wouldn't want to unleash them near people, where the demons would scatter, causing harm and physical possession to even more people. So remember, there were people. Therefore, he had to either send them to hell or into some living creature to house them temporarily. Obviously, humans were not possible. Why would Jesus do that to somebody? And demons hate being in hell, so Jesus chose to have mercy on them, even demons. And even over innocent pigs. These fallen angels who were once majestic, heavenly entities assembled before the throne of God would now choose the humiliation of being cast even into a lowly pig, rather than into hell. So do I believe that's what these are? Yes, I do, because I get sleep paralysis, and I don't get it a lot. I get, like I was getting it all the time because of certain behaviors. Not those stopped, but I can get one, every 6 months, 4 months maybe. Pigs are said to be more intelligent than even dogs, quite sensitive in some things. They're said to have a keen sense of direction. I don't believe the demons drove the pigs into the water, but instead the pigs drowned themselves in response to being taken over by demons. Remember, they're still a feeling, living animal. You know full well what pigs are capable of. They're good pets. In a sense, they, even unclean pigs, could not tolerate these unclean spirits. Do I believe that? I think that's quite possible. Because by reading the Bible, we know it's the truth, right? So this happened. Scripture says evil spirits seek rest in waterless places. So they weren't likely the ones who threw the pigs into the water. Jesus, by casting them out of the 1 or 2 demoniacs and the swine herd, suddenly threw demons into division and disorder. Remember, there are thousands of them coming out of one person. Suddenly, they're scattered and in disorder. In a brief hope of refuge for the demons, the pigs rejected them by collectively drowning themselves. I believe that. I believe that's possible. At that point, the demons were no longer able to inhabit the pigs, and even worse, were now in or near water, which is mentioned they can find no rest in. Okay, so they can find no rest in. But I just read in Mark that they tried to drown him in water and fire. Maybe, I don't know, maybe this was a different demon, I don't know. Whether they had earlier been united and strong while possessing in a human, they were now scattered in disorder and operating individually. They were suddenly in an unfamiliar environment. They found them that they found unpleasant, possibly because water is a medium for cleansing of things. And now each spirit would have to start his work all over again, but first yet find yet another refuge of some kind. You know that? And that's the end. You know what that reminds me of? And I'm telling you, it has a parallel, and you can't tell me it doesn't. A narcissist. We know, if you've dealt with these types of people, you know that they're out to basically kill you slowly. Okay? They do things, they have a motive right from the beginning, and what am I saying here? And now each spirit would have to start his work all over again, but first yet find another refuge of some kind. Is that not what happens when they move on from one to the next, to the next, to the next? They have another one set up. Is that not a parallel? I'm going to stop there. I see the parallel. So I found that very interesting. Yeah. I'm going to read you something else here. Something else I wanted to know. There are many questions in the Bible that you know, that you wish there was a side note that told you. Pardon me, I got to take a sip of my water and also a bite. Give me a second, I'm getting out of breath. My volume in the last video wasn't that good. I think I fixed it, but I guess we'll see. Still dealing with my new laptop, so it's cold where I am right now. It was like -10 yesterday, Celsius. No wind though. When it's like -10 Celsius, not Fahrenheit, if the wind blows like 30, 40 kilometers an hour, it's like -20, 22. That's just the way it is. When I was younger, it was so much colder. Like from the time I was, 1 year old, 0, whatever, to in my mid-20s, we had winters that were -40, easily -40. And obviously we've had like a polar change. We know why. Other people will call it a polar change, a shift. And maybe it is, but we know who it's done by. All right, this is very interesting. The most interesting thing ever that's ever been spoken. Okay. This is as I'm reading Mark. When I read the, I just always had the sense that people didn't really refer to Mark that much. I'm like, I've read so much of the old now. I'm getting, kind of get sick of it. Go back to the new. That's what I do. I go back and forth, and I'm back to the new, and then I've gone through. If there's one thing I haven't done is gone over the Gospels, all the different ones, and studied the differences. Like I know some of them, but people don't refer to Mark that much. So for that reason, I went into Mark, and I like Mark. I like them all, but I'm actually, I didn't. I just like the wording. So what am I covering here? Yes, this is interesting. Let me see. I don't like that there are so many different versions of text. I find the King James and then the New King James, the one to go to. When you start getting into Western and Bibles and all different other ones, it can be, it can mix things up a bit. There are so many, you never know what to think about them because there are such differences. And obviously you have to go back to the original text and stuff like that, Greek and Hebrew. But I'm saying that as I'm looking at this. I don't even know what some of them stand for, but I'm just going to read this. So I wanted to know, I'm going to read it to you. Now this is, okay, well this is Matthew that they're saying here, but I read it in Mark. because I can't find exactly where it is. Truly I say to you, there are some of those who are standing here who will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Remember, he says after that, what do you mean? And he says, what does it mean to you? Now, I thought about that, and I didn't know the answer for the longest time, and that's what I meant at the beginning of this video. You know how you read the Bible, you can read it, let's just say 5 or 10 times, and you don't actually look into the deep meaning of it. Well, it just popped in my mind. I'm like, okay, what I think that could be, it just popped in my mind. Immediately people are like, John. But what do you mean about John? Why John? And I thought, because they tried to boil him or whatever, or they say that. I thought, well, hey, when he was like 90-some years old, on the island of Patmos, Jesus appeared to him, right? In a vision, and in that vision, he showed him many things. So while everyone else was gone, John got to see Jesus coming in his kingdom. Is not Revelation showing him? He's showing him the prophecy of it. He's showing him the revelation of it. And so I'm just going to read this. That's what I thought, and so I started to look it up. I believe it is okay, so I'm just going to read the whole thing. Is John's vision of the second coming of Christ, Revelation 19:11-9, a fulfillment of Matthew 16:28, and Mark, I just went over it, but I forget exactly. And I'm going to read this all. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat on it is called Faithful and True. And in righteousness he judges and wages war. So, what they're saying here is what's going to happen. So John saw it. So it has to be a fulfillment. His eyes are a flame of fire, and on his head are many crowns. And he has a name written on him which no one knows except himself. He is clothed with a robe dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And the army, that just sounds so powerful, man. And the armies which are in heaven, clothed in fine linen, white and clean, were following him on white horses. From his mouth comes a sharp sword, so that with it he may strike down the nations, and he will rule them with a rod of iron, and he treads down the winepress of the fierce wrath of God, the Almighty. And on his robe and on his thighs he has a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried out with a loud voice, saying, Tell the birds that fly in mid-heaven, Come, assemble for the great feast of God, so that ye may eat the flesh of kings, commanders, the mighty men, flesh of horses and those who sit on them, the flesh of all people, both free and slaves, small and great. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies assembled to make war against him who sat on the horse and against his army. And then it says, was John shown in a vision the second coming of Christ while he was on Patmos, alive, not having tasted death yet, in fulfillment? How could it not be that? If it isn't, that means John didn't really, that wasn't a revelation then. That wasn't a prophecy. That's what I think. That's how I see it. I think I'm just going to leave it there. No, actually, there is one other. I'm going to leave it there. Give me a sec. There's another possibility, but man, I got to go back and mark here. Pardon me a sec. I was just gonna say it's after Jesus said that, it was like in this very same chapter. there will be some of you who will not taste death. And then they went up to the Mount of Transfiguration, and they saw Jesus. They saw his clothes turn white more than a launder maker could make it. That's what it says in Mark. And I never knew that before, but that's what it says. More white than a launderer could make it. That's New King James Version, and that would be King James Version. So he was transfigured, and Elijah was there, and he was talking with Moses as well. And so you can argue that one, but maybe it's a double fulfillment. But to say that what John saw there wasn't real and wasn't going to happen that way would make revelation of nothing, right? So I just say, actually, I'm going to leave in the description box the first one, the pigs that I talked about, because it's very interesting. I'm going to leave that. I may leave both, actually, but I don't know if the description box can handle them. It's not strong enough. Yeah, I wanted to also say this. I don't try to self-promote myself. Like, I don't try to sell things in here. Just letting you know that I have a YouTube channel, and it's called Discipline with Dave. Not Discipline Dave. There's another guy called Discipline Dave. And so the reason I do put this in here is because I try to help people. I suffer with a lot of pain. You guys know that. I have 4 pain suicide diseases, and I have other things that are like almost just as painful as them, other disorders. And I try to teach people what to do, how to help themselves when they're in painful situations. And I bought a GoPro camera, and there's video of me walking. There's a video of me on my mountain bike. You should check it out. I'm not going to leave that in the description. You go find it, because I won't promote myself that way. Discipline Dave. But it's to help people, and I, there are only so many things I can do in my state, because like I can go out and bike for certain amounts of time, walk, do all that for a certain amount of time. I can only do so many things to help people, but I'm still willing to help people, and that's why I make these videos too. But go check that out. You should see the biking one that I just did. It was indoors in a parking lot. Check it out. Happy New Year's, and God bless everyone.